In the course of life's great odyssey, we inevitably find ourselves in the company of many, a diverse array of souls who will shape our experiences, some for the better and some for the worse. Among these companions, there are those who will uplift us, offering steadfast support and inspiring us to realize the finest version of ourselves. Yet, there are others who, despite their proximity, will serve only as hindrances, their presence an anchor rather than a sail. It is these individuals, those who stifle rather than strengthen, that we must learn to recognize and, when necessary, remove from our lives. In this discourse, we shall unravel the 5 archetypes of such figures, examining the nature of their influence, the subtle ways in which they encumber us, and the means by which we may discern them. This is no mere exercise in exclusion, but rather a deliberate act of refinement, an endeavor to clear our path for growth, to foster an existence where fulfillment and tranquility may take root. So, if you are one who delights in pursuit of wisdom, who seeks to cultivate a life of virtue and purpose, I invite you to embark upon this contemplation with me. Let us draw upon the ageless teachings of the Stoics as we navigate these turbulent waters and reclaim the space that is rightfully ours. As we traverse the winding roads of existence, we are bound to encounter many temperaments, each bringing forth its own distinct essence. Among them is the one whose presence is less a companion and more of a constant contest, the competitor. This is not the friendly rival who spurs us toward betterment through mutual challenge, but rather the restless soul who transforms every exchange into a battle of supremacy. Their delight is not in shared achievement, but in solitary conquest. Their measure of success dictated not by personal growth, but by the diminishment of others. No moment is too trivial for comparison, no interaction too insignificant to be turned into a contest of wit, wealth, or wisdom. To remain in the company of such an individual is to find oneself in an endless duel, an unspoken race from which there is no respite. One may notice that their joys are subdued when fortune favors us, yet their spirits lift when we stumble. This ceaseless struggle can prove wearying, for it is not the natural striving of kindred spirits, but a silent war waged at the cost of harmony and mutual upliftment. The wisdom of the Stoics teaches us that while we cannot govern the inclinations of others, we hold full dominion over our own response. It is not ours to alter the nature of the competitor, but it is within our power to deny them the stage upon which they perform. To engage in their contest is to validate its existence. To step away is to reclaim our peace. Establishing firm boundaries is key. When their need to surpass crosses into the realm of toxicity, let there be no hesitation in articulating the limits of what is tolerable. If their presence breeds discord rather than camaraderie, then the path forward may require parting ways. A true companion in the Stoic sense is not one who sees in us a rival but a fellow traveler, a soul whose presence fortifies rather than fractures. Seek, then, not those who seek to outdo, but those who seek to elevate. Let not your days be spent in needless rivalry, but in the pursuit of a higher virtue, one that finds contentment not in the defeat of others, but in the steady refinement of the self. Among the many figures that pass through the corridors of our lives, there exists one whose intentions, though often veiled in the semblance of friendship, are, in truth, self-serving. This is the user, one who extends a hand of camaraderie only when it suits their purpose, whose presence is ever assured when there is gain to be had, but who vanishes like mist when the tides turn against us. The user is an adept navigator of convenience, skilled in the art of extracting what they need while offering little in return. Their affections, their loyalties, are dictated not by genuine regard but by utility. They will seek you in their hour of need, yet in yours they are but a shadow, distant and unbothered. The weight of such a relationship is heavy, for it draws upon your resources, be they emotional, material, or temporal, while leaving you depleted and unfulfilled. Here, too, the Stoics offers guidance. The key lies in recognizing that while we cannot alter the conduct of the user, we possess the full authority to dictate the terms of our own engagement. It is within our rights, indeed our duty, to determine the measure of access granted to those who take without reciprocation. Setting clear and unwavering boundaries is paramount. One must ask, do I give freely or do I give because I feel compelled? If the latter, then the relationship is an imbalance, an encroachment upon one's sense of self-worth. There is no shame in denying a request that comes at the cost of one's well-being. no cruelty in choosing to distance oneself from those who see only what they can take. In addressing such an individual, one need not resort to hostility, but rather to calm and resolute assertion. I have noticed that I am often there for you, yet when I am in need, the same is not true in return. Such words, though simple, carry the weight of self-respect and serve as a mirror through which the user must confront their own behavior. Then we must understand that some bonds, though once held close, must be loosened for our own sake. Stoicism teaches us the impermanence of all things, including relationships, and in this knowledge, we find the courage to release what no longer serves us. Seek, instead, those whose presence is a wellspring rather than a drain, those who stand beside you not merely in times of plenty, but in the bleak hours of need. It is in the cultivation of such connections that we find not only security, but also the rich soil in which our own virtues may flourish. In the journey of life, the company we keep is no small matter. It is a quiet architect of our experiences, shaping our joys, our burdens, and our very sense of self. If we are to walk this path with clarity and purpose, we must choose carefully, ensuring that those who accompany us do so in truth, in kindness, and in mutual respect. Thus, let us examine with wisdom and without hesitation the presence of those who hinder more than help. In their absence, we do not create emptiness, but rather space for growth, for peace, and for the kind of fellowship that elevates rather than exhausts. Among the burdensome souls that traverse the paths of our worldly toil and fellowship, few weigh as heavily upon the spirit as a blamer. Such a one is adept in the art of casting from themselves all shade of culpability, weaving instead a woeful tapestry in which they stand ever the hapless sufferer of ill-fated circumstance or the misdeeds of others. Their tongue, swift to exonerate their own failings, seeks ever a scapegoat upon whom to heap the weight of their missteps, as though by mere utterance they might be cleansed of all stain of fault. This manner of disposition doth not merely mar the harmony of common labor or kinship, but sows seeds of discord, stifling the growth of unity and mutual betterment. The blamer, by shunning honest reckoning of their own actions, doth fashion for themselves a prison of self-delusion, wherein wisdom withers and improvement falters. It is not in the grand calamities alone that this ill tendency doth arise, but in the smallest dealings of the day, where, when misfortune befalls, their gaze turns outward rather than inward. In such a manner do they disrupt the accord of their brethren, fraying the bonds of trust and respect that make for strong companionship. To meet the blamer with fortitude, the teachings of the Stoics offer most steadfast guide. Their wisdom bids us govern only what lieth within our own power, the workings of our mind and the tenor of our own deeds, while leaving be that which is beyond our command. Thus, when faced with the blamer's accusations, one ought not be ensnared by their narrative nor suffer one's peace to be shaken. Rather, one must stand firm in truth and clarity, neither yielding to unfounded blame nor being drawn into fruitless disputation. Let one, then, learn to perceive the marks of the blamer, the ever-hasty exculpation of their own faults, the ceaseless pointing of fingers, the pattern of grievance ever aimed outward. In knowing these signs, one may guard the soul against their influence, not by way of avoidance, but through the exercise of calm reason and steadfast composure. When called upon to answer their accusations, let the reply be measured and rooted in fact, devoid of ire, and directed toward resolution rather than conflict. A simple phrase such as, "I acknowledge thy concern, yet let us consider together what each of us might have done differently," doth serve to turn discourse from fruitless contention to fruitful reflection. Moreover, wisdom doth counsel that one ought to surround oneself with those whose hearts are bound to accountability, whose discourse is tempered with fairness, and whose example doth elevate rather than erode the spirit. In such company, the noxious influence of the blamer is held at bay, and the mind remains untroubled, fixed upon the virtues of integrity and growth. No less wearying than the blamer is a complainer, a soul that perceives gloom where others spy the dawn, who would lament the burden of a golden crown, and for whom no joy is untainted by some lurking sorrow. In every gathering they are found, ever ready to turn discourse toward grievance, whether it be toil, kin, or even the passing of the seasons. And though at first their lamentations may stir sympathy, in time they weigh upon the spirit, draining the vigor of those who tarry too long in their company. Yet the wisdom of the ancients doth furnish guidance even for this trial. The Stoics, whose counsel is ever a beacon in troubled waters, teach that while one cannot mend the nature of another, one may yet govern their own manner of engagement. To preserve the sanctity of one's peace, one must neither surrender to complainers' melancholy, nor be ensnared by their endless dirge. One course, then, is at a measured distance. This is no cowardly retreat, but fortification of the soul against needless despondency. Let interactions be brief, where prudence allows, and let discourse be guided toward topics less given complaint. Thus, one may offer courtesy without permitting the gloom of another to take root within. Yet if one must speak, let it be with the boldness of truth. There is virtue in gently but firmly calling forth the complainer from their pit of woe, urging them to consider that which is within their power to amend rather than that which lies beyond their grasp. One might say, "Thy grievances are heard, yet let us turn our thoughts to what may be done rather than what is lost," thus shifting the tide from lamentation to action. In the end, the counsel of the Stoics is this: let not the burdens of the blamer, nor the gloom of the complainer weigh down the soul. Hold fast to reason, set firm the bounds of peace, and move ever with a mind unshaken by the tempest of others. The weight of persistent negativity can be draining, gradually seeping into our thoughts and emotions. However, engaging with negativity does not necessitate confrontation through aggression. Instead, one must cultivate a balanced approach, firm yet composed, wherein feelings are articulated with clarity and resolve. For instance, if faced with someone who consistently dwells on the negative, you might respond with measured assertiveness. I acknowledge that the situation is frustrating, but shifting our focus toward potential solutions may lead us to a more constructive outcome. This response accomplishes two crucial objectives. Firstly, it establishes a firm boundary, ensuring that you do not become an emotional sponge for another's grievances. Secondly, it offers an alternative lens through which the individual may perceive their circumstances, one that leans toward resolution rather than despair. Encouraging a more optimistic outlook does not mean invalidating someone's struggles, but rather illuminating possibilities they may have overlooked. When negativity dominates a conversation, gently redirecting the dialogue toward hope and actionable steps can be a subtle yet effective intervention. For instance, when a person laments a challenge, you might highlight the silver linings or suggest practical solutions. This technique does not seek to diminish their experience, but instead to reframe their perspective, nudging them toward empowerment rather than resignation. However, as ancient Stoic wisdom reminds us, you can lead a horse to water, but you cannot make it drink. Your role is to offer perspective, not to impose it. True transformation must stem from within the individual. Stoicism teaches us that external forces need not disturb our inner peace. When faced with persistent negativity, envision yourself as a steadfast rock against the crashing waves of complaint. Regardless of the turmoil surrounding you, your inner stillness remains unshaken. This principle is invaluable when dealing with chronic complainers. Instead of absorbing their discontent, allow their grievances to pass through you like wind through an open window, acknowledged but not retained. Equally important is self-preservation. Continuous exposure to negativity can be depleting, making it imperative to replenish your emotional reserves. Seek the company of uplifting individuals, immerse yourself in rejuvenating activities, and prioritize your well-being. Stoicism does not merely teach endurance. It advocates for a life of flourishing, where resilience and peace coexist harmoniously. Navigating personal relationships often presents challenges, but among the most perilous is the presence of an abuser. Such individuals wield control through manipulation, fear, and coercion, leaving deep scars on their victims' emotional, psychological, and even physical well-being. Understanding the hallmarks of abuse is paramount to self-preservation. Abuse is not always overt. It can manifest in subtle, insidious ways: derogatory remarks that erode self-worth, financial control that strips independence, or psychological tactics designed to isolate and instill fear. Recognizing these patterns early can be the difference between entrapment and escape. Stoicism provides a profound framework for navigating such adversity. At its core, it teaches a distinction between what is within our control and what is not. In the context of an abusive relationship, this wisdom is crucial. Breaking free from an abusive dynamic is not merely an act of physical departure. It is a reclamation of self-respect and personal sovereignty. The courage to leave is often eroded by fear, but Stoicism reminds us that courage is not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. Seeking support is an act of strength, not weakness. Whether through trusted friends, family, or professional resources, reaching out is the first step toward liberation. There are organizations dedicated to providing sanctuary, guidance, and the means to rebuild a life untethered from abuse. Choosing to leave an abusive relationship is not just about survival. It is about rediscovering dignity, self-worth, and the right to a life unburdened by oppression. True healing does not happen overnight. It is a journey that demands patience, support, and immense self-compassion. Stoicism reminds us that adversity, while painful, can also be a catalyst of profound personal growth. While we cannot rewrite our past, we wield the power to shape our future. Every step away from toxicity is a step toward a life defined by self-respect, peace, and resilience. At the heart of this philosophy lies an unyielding truth. The people we surround ourselves with shape not only our present reality, but also our future. Life is too brief to be weighed down by toxicity. Choose tranquility over turmoil, progress over stagnation, and self-worth over compromise. The Stoics understood that we are the architects of our own fate. And sometimes, the bravest act of all is walking away from that which no longer serves us. If this message resonated with you, take a moment to reflect. And if you seek further wisdom on mastering the art of resilience, explore the insights that await. Stay strong, stay wise, and continue on your journey toward self-mastery.